So we now move on to a topic that would be interesting to all of us, the story of Indian Railways, the tracks of time. The presenter is Sanjay Chadha and the moderator is Atulya Sinha. I would like to reintroduce Atulya Sinha as a railwayman by profession but a rail fan by choice. Currently, the Chief Administrative Officer of Rail Wheel Plant of the Indian Railways at Bela in the state of Bihar. He is a mechanical and a production engineer with a postgraduate degree, diploma in management. He has worked in different, diverse, important capacities in various aspects of railway working. Atulya Sinha has a keen interest in railway history and heritage and is a very active member of the Rail Enthusiast Society, having taken many of our monthly talks also. Over to you, Atulya, again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Pandey. It is my great privilege to introduce Mr. Sanjay Chadha. I have had the pleasure of knowing him for over 40 years. He was 2 years senior to me at Jamalpur. A brilliant student, an outstanding sportsman, and a highly disciplined individual, and an extremely friendly and helpful person. In his career, when he was posted at Railway Board, you know, if you are a railway officer posted in the field, you always need a friend in the board, because sometimes you want to know what's going on. And sometimes you actually go to the board and you need a place to sit where you can keep your bag and get a cup of tea. And for many people, Sanjay Chadha was that friend. So I think I needn't say anything more about his personal qualities. Coming to the professional aspect, he holds an MBA from FMS Delhi. And apart from the railways, he has blazed an outstanding career in the Commerce Ministry. And he has also served as chairman and CEO of MMTC. He has handled multiple trade negotiations with USA, Canada, Japan, Korea, Taiwan, and other countries. He has been an additional secretary in the Ministry of Commerce and Industries, and currently he is working with Uber, and he's also the director of a Hyderabad-based company. So today's presentation, I forgot to mention that Dr. Vivek Debroy was a one-man consultant for railways, and Mr. Chadha was a part of his team who helped him in collecting the information, preparing his report. And as a byproduct of that work, a book was published, which is called Indian Railways, The Weaving of a National Tapestry. And Mr. Chadha was one of the co-authors of that book. So today, based on his memories and his experiences, he will be making a presentation called The Story of Indian Railways, Tracks of Time, in which we will see that railways are not merely a physical construct, but they go beyond that. And especially in the Indian context, how railways have affected not only the economy and the society, but the very thought processes and the attitudes of millions of people. So I'm sure you're all looking forward to this. And most welcome, Mr. Sanjay Chadha. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Atulya. Hello, everyone. And just before I begin my presentation, I'd just like to mention that I hope much of what Atulya said is true. But I had the good fortune of being associated with a committee that was set up for restructuring the Railway Ministry and Railway Board. It was headed by Dr. Vivek Debroy, who was the chairman of the Economic Advisory Council to the PM. It had Mr. K.M. Chandrasekhar, a former cabinet secretary, Mr. Gocharan Das, a former CMD of Procter & Gamble, and a well-known author, and one former MD of National Stock Exchange, and one gentleman who went on to become the chairman of SEBI after the committee. The committee went around doing its official work, but somehow fell in love with the railways because they interacted with 4 zonal railways, 6 divisions, and 3 PUs. And at the end of it, they just fell in love with the Indian Railways and said it's just more than a work. And Mr. Gucharan Das, who had a contract with Penguin Random House for writing 10 books, decided that one of the books should be the anecdotes on railways. So that is the background with which I was invited by Mr. Jail Singh and Atulya Sinha to speak on something that the book mentions. All I promise is that there's nothing technical about it. It's just anecdotal, and you'll have to pardon my sour throat because I have a little bit of a congestion in my throat. But may I begin? So, as it says, that the journey of Indian Railways is more than just tracks, locos, and carriages. It's a saga of ambition, ingenuity, and transformation. Now, when we talk of the Indian Railways, we all know that the first passenger train in India ran on April 16th between Bombay and Thane. But a lot of people would perhaps not know that India's first train service was actually the Red Hills Railway, which ran from the Red Hills of Chintadripet to transport granite. This was a gentleman called Mr. Arthur Cotton, and he ran this railway system. Also, a little known fact is that the first railways was not to run from Bombay to Thane, but from Calcutta to Hooghly. And it somehow had a series of mishaps. The ship carrying the coaches came and got sunk just at the head, at a sandbed before it could dock at Calcutta. The ship which was carrying the first locomotive mistakenly landed up in Australia. So all these delays were instrumental in ensuring that the first train, which was supposed to be run before April 1853, could only run by 15th of August 1854. And it ran between Calcutta and Hooghly. So this is some of these interesting facts. Then also coming back to the formation of Indian Railways, long before, of course, we know that Lord Dalhousie is known as the father of Indian Railways, and his famous Railway Minutes of 1853 introduced railways into the Indian subcontinent. But long before that, in 1845, a gentleman, Jamsetji Jijabhai, those who are from Bombay would be familiar with the JJ School of Arts. He was a philanthropist, very big name in Bombay. And one Mr. Jagannath Sankara Seth, they formed an Indian Railway Association, which later was incorporated into the GIP and is the modern day Central Railway. Now, another thing which came out interestingly is we don't have a photograph of the first train that was carried, that ran on Indian Railways, because the committee members kept saying that we have not seen a photograph which has 3 locomotives at the head. We all know that the first train was pulled by Sahib, Sindh, and Sultan. But we rarely find a photograph in the archives with 3 locomotives at the head. So we don't know. We know that they are all old photographs which are carried, but we are certain that it's not very clear that there is a photograph of the first train available in the triple loco format. Also coming to the colonial foundations. When we look at these old photographs, there is a very interesting fact that Mr. R.M. Stephenson took a ship and came to India in 1847. And his job was to identify whether the railways can be connected from Calcutta to Delhi. And he was the first chairman, or whatever you want to call it, the CEO of the East India Railway Company. Now, his claim to fame was that he was the nephew of George Stephenson. So they said that Stephenson ran in his blood, and he was the one who was tasked by the East India Railways to run the first train, which finally did not happen. But he did play a very crucial role in introducing Indian Railways to India. One of the major factors which was there was, of course, cotton. because cotton was a major supply raw material for Britain's textile industries in those days. And the railways was planned to ensure that cottons could reach Britain as quickly as possible. Also, when the railways came, a lot of royals initially opposed it, fearing loss of power, but many came on board when they found that the railways could be generally used for a larger good. So what began as a colonial tool eventually unified India, connecting cities, fostering trade, and nurturing a shared national identity. Now, these are some of the things, just some of the points that I'd like to mention. Up till 1901, from 1853, the Indian railways were administered primarily by private British companies under a guarantee system, where a fixed return on investment was ensured to them. In 1901, Mr. Thomas Robertson was appointed to study railway administration, and in 1903 he recommended forming a three-member railway board. The first railway board had a chief commissioner, which one could say was equivalent to today's chairman railway board, a commissioner for way works, projects and stores, and another commissioner for general administration, staff and traffic. Now, in 1905, under an act of parliament, the railways was transferred to the railway board from the public works department. In 1905, of course, Mr. Vinu Mathur is on the call. He knows this better than me, that the railways, the capital had not shifted to Delhi, and there was this idea that where was the railway board housed? So if you actually see, the first railway board building still exists. It's in Shimla. You can see the photographs, one old photograph on the left and a little modern photograph on the right. It was built at a princely cost of 4 lakh rupees, and it was built using cast iron and steel. It was built by Richardson and Crudas, who were the architects, and it had some special features like red and cream corner spires. It has 4 levels above the road level and 3 levels below. And currently it houses various government and police officers of the Himachal government. One goes to Shimla, one can still see this building. Also, another landmark was 1924, when, based on Ackworth Committee's recommendation, the first separate railway budget was presented. 1924-25 was also the year when electric traction came to India, and the railways started having electric traction starting from Bombay's. So just a few anecdotal facts about the railways which came about. We also had the good fortune of reading some of the literature available. Mahatma Gandhi has written a book called Third Class in Indian Railways. Mahatma Gandhi was one of the persons who did not like the railways and called it evil. Yet he found that this is the best way to connect with the masses. So he, after 2 years of being in India, he wrote a book in which he said that 1/4 of my total time in India has been spent in the third class of Indian Railways. The problems then are not very different. As you can see, what he's chronicled, to this compartment there was a closet, falsely so called. There was a pipe but no water. And I say without fear of challenge that it was pestilentially dirty. And being a Mahatma that he is, he did not use very harsh words, but in his tongue-in-cheek humor, he said, I have not the power adequately to describe it without committing a breach of laws of decent speech. You can just see his indignation out there. The challenges of keeping toilet clean are there even today on the Indian Railways. But I think it's improved, one may say. Also, was an interesting fact that Mahatma Gandhi's chronicled. He blamed the spread of plague on the Indian Railways. He said that it promoted mobility, and through mobility infections would spread. And he also was very, very mindful that the trains were very dirty. He says any other result is impossible, where passengers always leave some dirt where they go and take more on leaving. If you read this book has got some really nice descriptions of, how you had to pay the TT even in those days, and how compartments were overcrowded, and what are the travails of a third class traveler. But it's worth reading. Another architect of of modern India, or of the freedom struggle, was Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Not many know that when he escaped India, he boarded the Kalka mail at Gomo station and then went on to Peshawar and escaped. Even today, if you see the board of the Gomo station, it says Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose Junction, Gomo. So that is something that is a little known fact. Also, we came across, if you see any of the writings of author Ruskin Bond, he is known to be writing on the railway platforms. He found it as the best place, and somehow, ironically, the most relaxing place to write a story. He was initially in Dehradun, and he's written that there were busy periods and quiet periods, and soon vendors and some of the station staff got to know me. And he says, I did not have to bother with a platform ticket. I was exempted from this formality, as were the coolies and the stray dogs. And of course, when he went on and moved to Mussoorie, uh, he saw less of trains and less of railway stations. And clearly, he wrote about how much he missed them and how much he missed the chatter of the platforms, and what he found as a very relaxing atmosphere. These were some of the things that we came across. Also, on a note that okay, let me just complete this. Sorry. The another fact, and a very iconic railway minister was the first railway minister, called Mr. Lal Bahadur Shastri. He set the standards for probity and rectitude in public life. There were two accidents, one in modern day Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, and in September, followed by one in Tamil Nadu. At the end of the first accident, he took moral responsibility and resigned. And the Prime Minister, Mr. Nehru, refused to accept his resignation. When the second accident happened, he completely dug his heels and said that I am leaving, and he left the post of the railway minister. And both these accidents happened because in the monsoon, swollen rivers, coaches fell into the water, embankments gave way. But he set a standard, a gold standard for probity. Also, he was very close to farmers. He gave the Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan Nara, if you may call it. And on an complaint by a poor farmer, he made sure that a lot of inspections were undertaken of the third class passenger conditions. And he was particularly interested in making sure that the third class passenger conditions were improved. So that was one of his contributions to the Indian Railways. And of course, he started the system of too many inspections, and we'll come to that another thing. Okay, another thing that the committee was very excited about was then we visited the railway board. Now, railways used to have what was called bathroom stops in the morning, where passengers would get off, relieve themselves, and come on and resume their journey on trains. So there is a letter from Mr. Okhil Chandra Sen, who apparently in one of the bathroom stops found the stop to be quite inadequate. And you can see the letter which was given in Sahibganj divisional office. And this letter is largely credited with bringing to the attention of the authorities the conditions of the passengers without toilets. And some say it led to the introduction of toilets on the train. So the letter is pretty amusing. It's a very popular letter in the Rail Museum. Anybody who comes there and looks at it is really taken in by the sheer irony of what he had to undergo. And this is one. Also, interestingly, there were some of the things. Now, this is something which, again, we know that there is an India Gate, which is a war memorial. And when the capital was being shifted, there was a big tug of war between shifting the tracks which passed through what is known today as India Gate or the All India War Memorial as it was being constructed, and railways were asked to shift the track. And there was a big tug of war between the railway administration, who felt that this was useless, and the other civil administration, which pushed the railways into moving the track. The line today passes near Pragati Maidan. And I think, if I recollect correctly, about a decade or two ago, Mr. Vinu Mathur had written an article in a newspaper on this conflict. So this is one of those classical cases of bureaucracy finding its way into the railway tussle. So some of it I have tried to capture here, which is available. And so before I conclude, just one more anecdote I'd like to regale you with. The committee, when they were talking to the various railways, the modern day railway people were very confident that goods trains had never been timetabled in India. And in a meeting in Eastern Railway with the general managers and principal heads of the departments, the committee was told that goods trains had never been timetabled. And shortly thereafter, they were taken down to the archives, which Eastern Railway had just set up in the Eastern Railway headquarters on the ground floor. And there was a timetable of 1942, where all the goods trains had been timetabled between Delhi and Calcutta. So the committee was very amused by this fact that not everything about Indian Railways is known to everybody. But it whetted their appetite into being involved in railways just beyond their term of the committee. Many of them are very active readers. They're still writing about railways. Dr. Debroy wrote another book about Indian Railways also. Mr. Gurcharan Das has been writing about it constantly. So in tribute to Dr. Debroy, whom we lost him late last year as he was ailing, and he always said that the railways are not just about locomotives and coaches and trains. They're about people, memories, and stories. Stories of resilience, progress, and unity. And this needs to be preserved, were his words. So I think with that tribute, I'll end here. I know it's the last lecture of the day, so I'm happy to give the time back. Over to you, Atulya.
अतुल्य सर अनम्यूट कर लीजिए.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was muted. I hope you can hear me now.
Yeah, we can hear you.
It's been a very informative and a thought-provoking presentation. Especially the last line where you said the railways are about people, memories, and stories. I'd like to mention that railways have given rise to a lot of fiction, music, movies, and paintings in different parts of the world. So this shows the deep involvement of railways in the public eye. It's not just passengers. Even people who very rarely travel by train are always conscious of railways. So, and now, of course, we have a growing rail fanning trend in India. And RES is one of the leading organizations, but there are a lot of others, including some regional organizations, which are very, very active. So I think there are no questions or comments specific to this presentation, but I'd like to add a few points.
Comment by Himakal Tata in the chat box.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed this. Right. Now we have, let me read Mr. Tata's comment. Mr. Chadha's insightful presentation into evolution of Indian Railways speaks volumes of his painstaking research. Its focus on the lesser-known facts was indeed a revelation. The observations of Mahatma Gandhi and Ruskin Bond came as eye-openers. The appropriate visuals from the archives took us down the memory lanes of railway. Nostalgia, enjoyed the details. Thank you very much, Mr. Chadha, for sharing snippets of your work of passion. So I think many of us who have been listening to this talk have the same feeling Now, coming to specifics, nowadays there is a facility for passengers to record their complaints through internet, and it's called Rail Madad. And from what you have told us, it seems that the pioneer of Rail Madad complaints was none other than Mahatma Gandhi himself. So the other issue which Shaurav has pointed out, he says that NRM themselves removed the copy of the letter from Mr. Okil Chandra Sen from display. He says, was it true or just another fiction? Now, one point which I'd like to make is this letter was supposed to have been written in 1909, but toilets were in existence before 1909 also. Possibly, toilets were introduced in all the classes after 1909. They were always there in the upper classes. And I've got some drawings of coaches from the 1870s and 1880s which show toilets, but they are in the upper classes. So it's possible that Mr. Sen was instrumental in getting toilets in the lower classes. And what the feedback which we have got from Mahatma Gandhi shows that just having toilets is not enough. The real challenge is to maintain them. So there is actually a link between these two. Another point is that you have mentioned Netaji Bose and his flight when he escaped using the train from Gomo. He went by car from Kolkata to Gomo, and then he boarded a train in disguise. Now, interestingly, on another occasion, he had a meal at a railway refreshment room on Southeastern Railway, and he was highly appreciative about it. And he wrote a very nice comment saying that he enjoyed the meal and the service. And this has been preserved in the heritage room at Southeastern Railway headquarters. So we did get a few compliments also even in those days. Ruskin Bond, you have mentioned. Ruskin Bond, of course, is the author of a large number of books, and many of them are built around railways. I think Mr. Anand would like to say something. Welcome, sir.
Gurcharan Das had in one of his earlier books, I think it's called India Unbound. So he describes how a relation of his, who was the DME Sialda, tried to do some ticket checking, and he was almost hammered within an inch of his life, and he, in disgust, he quit the railways. So that's mentioned in Mr. Gurcharan Das's book. And I have an interesting episode about complaints. To put it shortly, a passenger traveling from Madurai to Chennai, he suddenly found that he had left his medicines behind, and he was highly diabetic and a blood pressure patient. So in the next day halt, he told the station master, "Can you do something?" And at the very next halt, the station master appeared with the required medicines accompanied by a railway doctor. So this gentleman was so pleased, he wrote a nice letter to me. And of course, it didn't reach me directly, it went to the complaint section. And he received the following missive. We are thankful for your thing. We shall try to improve matters, and we are going to start disciplinary action against the people involved. So would you be able to present yourself at the... So, I mean, and it was written in one of those cyclo-styled badam-colored papers, pick the right response. So I hope we have come a long way from that. Thank you.
Back to you, Tulya.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to say anything?
Only one comment that we had gone for a workshop with Sadguru Jaggi Vasudev, and he mentioned that his father was a DMO at Guntakal.
Yes. A lot of ex-railway people have made their names in different fields in the world. And so are the sons and daughters of railway employees. One reason which I imagine is that the railways have a work ethic. And if you are disciplined, your children also pick up that work ethic. So possibly having railway in the blood is good for one's career. So I think that brings us to the end of this day's presentations. So over to you, Mr. Pandey.
Thank you, Atulya. And 2 days of wonderful sessions are now coming to a close. It has been slightly tiring, but also very enjoyable to go around the globe and learning about what all is happening in the world in the field of railways, about the heritage railways, and all kind of things that are being done all over the world. The speakers were wonderful, and so were the moderators. I must also thank the moderators.